So welcome to my new guest today, David Waldas. Let me start that over again. Waldas, right?
Waldas, yeah.
Okay, let me stop. Welcome everybody to the podcast, Running Strong Mind Body Connection. My new guest today is David Waldas.
Yes.
And David, welcome
Well,
to
thanks. I
this
appreciate it.
podcast.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have a good time too.
I know we're going to have a
Already are with our
blast.
pre-conversation here.
Right. Hey, why don't you just share with my guests, who
Mhm.
are you? Tell us
Yeah,
about
yeah,
yourself.
yeah, absolutely. So, I have a business called Aligned Living where I utilize my abilities as a psychic and a channel and a coach to help people really learn to stabilize off of themselves instead of off the outer world. And I
Right.
work a lot with empaths, and I work a lot with high performers, and I work a lot with people that are kind of what I call spiritual junkies that jump from one activity to another, trying to stabilize themselves. And I help people learn how to reorganize their energy so that they stabilize off themselves and bring that to everything they do, rather than walking into situations and having to kind of absorb the energy of that and hold their own in it. And it's a very simple process that creates profound results. And then I teach people how to stay in it. I always joke that it's called aligned living, not aligned moments. We've all had aligned
Right.
moments.
Yeah, life is a journey too. So
Yeah.
a lot of my listeners are runners and
Mhm.
they know that about this podcast and the mind body connection. But one thing I'd really like to kind of bring into here is that we're all energetic beings.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
so a lot of people going out running, and a lot of my listeners are long distance runners
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
cyclists and athletes as
Yeah,
well
yeah.
as I am, and they know me. But we don't remember that we get so caught up in the physical part of our
Hmm.
world that we
Right.
don't remember that we're actually energetic beings, and that energy creates that um it creates that either ease and flow in your life, or it creates
That other thing.
yeah, the chaos in your life.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And I think that's I'm a cyclist, both mountain and road, and running. I tend to trail run more than on the road. And one of the things I talk about with my clients so much, because we're always talking about being in alignment and being in flow with ourselves. And when we get up in the morning, we check with ourselves and go, where am I? Like, am I sideways? Am I caught up in something? And quite often there's something we need to do to be ready to move into alignment. And for me, it's always exercise.
Oh,
And
that's true. That's good. Yeah.
and so, like, why do I've often thought about that. I'm like, do I really enjoy this? I'm like, well, I feel great when I'm doing it. And people can call it a runner's high, people can call it, all these different things, but it's like, man, everything just I just get really clear and flowy, and then that carries forward into my life. And I think that's why I love, being on a bike or running, and being able to just kind of flush out my system, because it's
Right.
so easy for us to get congested with all the energy that we're, wading through on the
Right.
regular.
I started with a bike. I just love the bike, just to
Hmm.
where it can take you.
Hmm.
And one of my fondest memories was when I was working, I was putting on a lot of miles. I used to ride hundreds of thousands of miles, but I'd get up really early in the morning.
Hmm.
I'm
Hmm.
talking dark,
Right, right.
right? And yeah, I have all that reflective stuff on, but the energy
Hmm.
in the early morning is so calm.
Yeah, when nobody else is around, and
Nobody's
yeah,
around. There's
yeah,
nothing chaotic going on. And just the other day, and I posted this on Facebook, I went out and ran at 5 o'clock in the morning, and I forgot how cool that was.
yeah. How
Because
beautiful.
there's just that you can feel the difference in the energy between 5 o'clock in the morning and 7 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, yeah,
And so it's really kind of cool to connect with the universe, connect with Earth, connect with yourself
yeah.
on just that energy and the joy you get out of it. Just and
Right.
sometimes we're so much in our head, we're not realizing how much energy the joy is bringing into our body.
Yeah, and I think the moment we realize it, there becomes an exponential kind of acceleration of that too, and the absorbing of it and the shift. And when we're intentional about it
Right.
versus it being a byproduct,
Right.
and going like, yeah, this is great. Like I'm actually aware of what's happening, and it
Yeah.
allows it to happen at a at another level. Yeah, it's,
So how did you transition from running and biking and getting into what you're doing right now?
yeah, so it kind of found me, like a lot of the spiritual stuff does. My old career, I actually used to be a soccer coach, and I played competitive soccer through college, and I was a school teacher, and then I was in sales and entrepreneur, so I'm trying all these kind of more concrete things. And on my and I never saw myself as a psychic or a channel. Like I thought that world was interesting, and I thought energy was interesting, but I didn't realize how deep I was in it. It was just my experience of being. And I think most of us that have that, unless we've really had a reflection back or talked to somebody, about understanding what our energy is and how we interact with it, we just have our own inner world. And we don't realize quite often how different our inner world might be from somebody else's. And I think it's kind of a cool thing about a community like this of, ultra runners or long distance runners or cyclists, that there's often a commonality about, like, there's something we're trying to move through, right? There's something
Right.
out in the world that's very challenging for us. And when we're doing this, like, everything becomes right in the world. And I think that's part of why we love to be on a bike or love to be running, is that it just brings order to things.
Uh, Yeah, that is so true. There's a uh, there's a transformation that we make.
Mhm,
Because
mhm.
I want to see even from my journey, I'm like, who would have ever thought I'd be doing what I'm doing today 30 years ago?
Right, right.
And it's the journey in life. And there's always, when I work with my clients, it's always discovering what's really churning in their heart.
Mhm,
Because
mhm.
sometimes we feel like we're just doing all this in life, but we know there's more to it.
Yeah, yeah,
And
absolutely.
it's bringing that out. And we're never, I find so many people are never living to their potential.
Mhm, mhm.
And our potential is more than just what we do every single day. And
Absolutely.
so the biking and the running kind of brings a self-discovery
Absolutely,
of
absolutely.
what, and so I know people who've done, their first 100-mile run,
Mhm,
digging
mhm,
deep into that and really
mhm,
discovering something about that, making that transformation. People who do the race called Badwater, the
mhm,
same
mhm,
thing. I've watched a gentleman go through a complete shutdown
mhm.
and then come out of that, and it's just a life-changing thing. And I know for me, I I'm so curious because I'm going to race my first 250-mile run,
Wow, wow, wow.
and I am so curious the deeper knowing of discovering the deeper
What's gonna
knowing of
unlock? Yeah,
me. Yeah,
yeah.
so
Yeah, no, and it's fascinating. And I think that, when we're looking for that discovery, like, I really I know what a lot of what I do has a lot to do with what I call our emerging self. And we
right,
we enter this world, and we just pile all of these things on top of us, all these coping mechanisms, all these responses to the trauma we've all been through. And then we get to know ourselves really well and go, in this situation, I'm like this, and I need to navigate it like this. But what we know is our coping mechanisms. We know the
right,
ways that we've had to adjust ourselves in order to manage being in this world. And quite often with our sensitivities, I think a lot of people that love the ultra stuff, or even just into cycling and running, like, there's a lot of sensitivities that we have. And so, the work that I do teaches people to engage with themselves in a place. And it's almost mechanical in nature. When we think of it as energy, and we think of energy as being very flowy and a little bit hard to wrap our heads around. But when we do this work, it's so mechanical. Instead of being tapped in out there and feeling the world, maybe
right,
90% and 10% here, we take the the part of us that's doing that and flip it around and put 90% on us and 10% on the world. And then all of a sudden we're at the core of us instead of on
right,
the outside of us trying to figure out who we are.
right,
And when we do that, all of a sudden there's like, oh, I realize so much of what I've seen as my personality or seen as how I know myself has been how I've needed to be in order to manage the sensitivity, or to manage the people around me, or to manage what mom liked or didn't like, or what dad liked or didn't like, or what
right.
work requires of me. And then we create this construct that we call our identity and our personality. And then
Yeah,
we try to live our life from that management of it. And then we create all these things that are just like, "Ah, this just doesn't feel good," or I outgrow this, and then I outgrow that, and then I outgrow this. And when we come back to the core of ourselves and then start to kind of break off all of those pieces and realize we don't need those protective layers that we've called us, that aren't really us, something magical happens. And I think it is, one of the things I've always loved doing, and I haven't done this in a long time, but particularly when I had a busier life that required me to be more in it, in the chaos, is I love to go backpacking, and particularly in the winter,
Right.
or
Oh,
backcountry skiing, and like just go
yeah.
out, kind of like you were talking about that 5 a.m. piece, and just being out when there's just silence, and it's like
Yeah.
there's just nothing going on. I'm like, oh, thank God, like this is what I like. This is magic to me.
Yeah.
And so really when we reverse that feedback loop, instead of having the world, getting access to just flush into us, and it's so loud and we don't know it because it's just our daily experience, that silence, that I would go to great lengths, drive forever to go out to the
Hundreds of
desert,
miles
or
to get.
or
Yeah.
hike in for
Right.
miles, like, oh, it's finally stopped, it stopped, oh my God, thank God, to that we can do that right here right now.
Yeah.
And then it actually adds to what we're doing. And we still, like, I still love being on my bike, I still love running, but I do it for a little bit of a different reason. Before, it was, I think, to create the silence, and now it's to just be that much more clear, to be that much more expanded, and actually
Yeah.
you go beyond what's been available.
The word that came to me was expansive.
That's it. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's I remember that too. Years ago, I used to backpack, and I used to bring my kids were very little, and
Mhm.
I'd make them go backpacking, and
Same. Yep.
they were super
Mhm.
cute. They all
Right.
had to carry parts of the tent. They all had to carry certain things,
Yeah.
but we're disconnected. And back then, it wasn't as inundated as it is today, because we're inundated so much with technology and
Hmm. Hmm.
and the chaos, and we're the what's going on in the world right now. It's like we
Hmm.
forget me.
Yeah. Yeah.
We forget who we are, and we're not taking that time to go out. But I remember just I still hear it because I'm up in Auburn, and
Hmm.
oh no, even in Flagstaff,
Hmm.
when the wind is blowing, but you don't feel it, but you can hear it in the tops of the trees.
Right. Right.
That is a memory that I have from when I was a little kid, when we used to
Um,
go camping as a
yeah.
kid.
Laying in the tent and hearing that.
Laying,
Yeah.
even being outside.
Yeah.
Sometimes we
Yeah.
didn't have tents; we were just laying in the ground. But you could
Right.
hear the wind blowing in the trees, but you never felt it. To me, that was just such an
Yeah. I
amazing
love that feeling.
memory of sound. But I want to go back to how you explained it, and I love your analogy of when we were kids. So in my world, in the mental fitness and positive intelligence that I teach, is that,
Mhm.
and it's understanding that all those negative thoughts that we have going on in our head,
Mhm.
these are habits we created. These are protections we
Yeah.
created when we were kids that
Yeah. And so much
today
where you can
don't
pick
serve
off of
us.
other people.
Oh, for
We're
sure.
always being baited into that. Like, people love to go, come join me here, right?
Right. You're right. And we jump on board.
Yeah, take the bait. Yeah.
So, but yeah, it brings it back into, because I believe everybody, when the minute they're born, they are of their essence.
Hmm. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I mean, God, I mean, you're just a few minutes old. You don't know who you are. But then
Right.
as we grow older, we have to rediscover who we are.
Right. Right.
And we have to
That,
open
yeah.
back up, and we have that churning sense inside of us. And you pay attention to that, because that churning sense is saying, come on, I want to wake up. Come on, let's just change here. And
Uh,
when we are more open into the energy of ourselves and into
mm,
the peace and love and the love in our
mhm.
heart, when we fall into ourselves, fall back in love into the truth of who we are, you would be more amazed at how much the world opens up to you.
Absolutely. And how much kinder it becomes,
Yeah.
and then much less threatening, and yeah, I love that. And it's always so fun to me. And, I look at my own life, we spend the first part of our life just piling all the shit on
Right?
ourselves. And then the second half of our life unpiling it. Like, it's kind of ridiculous, but it's what we do. And it's, I love what you're saying about when we're first born. And that's something that I used to really understand what we do with our empathic ability. And it's interesting to think that, like, they say it's about 20%. I think it's closer to 30% of the population that has this true empathic ability, this ability to literally feel what other people's
Right.
emotions are. And people call it empathic ability, the ability to feel others, but to me, I think that definition's off. I think it's the ability to feel very deeply and to pick up on the energetics of the emotions and to know them on whatever we place that ability on, that emotional body. And so, when we're born, 5 century babies, little babies that don't have that turned on in them, they look to the outer world too, and they just go, I'm going to taste, touch, smell, hear, see everything that I can to
Right.
make sense of who I am and what the world is. And then those of us that have this empathic ability turned on, we flip that outside too and go, what is going on here? Who are these people and who am I in relation to them? And then we spend our life triangulating ourselves and understanding ourselves through our interactions with the world, and not as much through ourselves, unless we create these experiences, maybe where we go for a long run and we're just by ourselves, we're in our own little container and we get to experience that. But most of the time we're triangulating off of the world and our understanding of self, because as babies we did it, and nobody ever stopped us and goes, hey, you don't need to do it that way. That empathic ability, like, it doesn't have to be turned on out there, it can be turned on in here. And when we
Hmm.
turn it on in here now, like I said, it's like, instead of being 90% external information, energy, emotions coming at us and 10% us trying to hold its own, all of a sudden now 90% of what we experience from that energetic emotional experience is us and our own connection with source or the universe or God or however you want to see it,
Right.
and that flow inside of ourselves. And once that's reversed, everything changes, because now it all originates with us and we're not asking the world anymore what they think of us, or who we are. We get a light overlay of that, but what we really get is, does this match me? Is the way that I'm being, is what I'm saying, is what I'm thinking in resonance with me, not in resonance with my surroundings. We're always in resonance with our surroundings, but when that stops streaming, all of a sudden our body starts to become the frequency of us and in resonance with us. We start to take care of it better, we start to feel more what it needs, and we start to think more in align with ourselves rather than in the programming of whoever's around us. And that's when we start to just shed and shed and shed, because there's so much of us that we know is us that's not us.
Right.
And that's what creates us, the parts of us that we don't enjoy. I think
Right.
everybody's afraid, like, oh, what am I going to discover if I look inside? I'm like, beauty and
I
everything
know.
you want in life and all
Yeah.
this stuff. Like, we already know our shit. We already know the things we don't like about ourselves, right? But that aren't even us, that they're just the ways that we've had to interface. And so when we shed
Right.
that, like, it's like, oh, this is what I was afraid of. Are you kidding me? Like, this is great.
I love that because I have had people, they're afraid to go in. They're
Hmm.
so afraid to go in
Yeah,
because
yeah.
they're so caught up on the grief and the
Yeah,
fears and
yeah.
all that. They're so afraid of being able of feeling that maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Or that it's deeper, that it gets stronger and stronger the more you go in, rather than it just being a layer that you work
yeah,
through,
it
and then you're like,
just
oh, there's beauty
we're not
underneath
going
that
in and
pain.
rechanging it. I mean, you're not going in and reliving that. You're going in to release it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Going in beyond that because it's deeper in ourselves to where the truth of who we are
Because
into
yeah,
that.
it's not you. It's a layer that you have on top of you. Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
I like that. It is not you.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It
That
is
is
not
that
you.
is the lie of who we are because that's, and we can do this like in just simple words of the inner critic and the saboteurs, and these are the
Hmm.
lies that we tell ourselves.
Yeah, yeah,
And we have been listening to them and remembering them day after day after day. We believe that that's what I'm going to say, a small t truth.
yeah, yeah. And it puts us
And
in a battle with our surroundings.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And so how amazing. How amazing. So
Right?
what kind of a trail runner are you? What do you just do it for pleasure? Do you into races? What?
Yeah, I used to do more, like, I haven't done a ton of races. I did some, but what I found was, like, I just do it for the enjoyment and the
Yeah,
clarity of it, and it varies, from a 3 or 5 mile run to, going out for a couple hours and just disappearing into it. And so, like, it fluctuates so much for me what I want each day, and I think a lot of it's just feeling, what does my body want. And that's
right,
kind of a weird thing for me. Before, I would make decisions like, I should do this. This is good for me. And I'm like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And I'd make these kind of egoic decisions. And
right,
now that, as I was talking about, like, the more clear we are in our body, the more tapped into ourselves we are, we go, what does my body need today? What does it want?
right,
And what does my brain want? And then finding that, that match and then doing it. And so, I think I used to do more longer runs. Now I don't do them as much. But I just love being out on the trail, and uh, like I love the way that I feel, and so it varies so much. I probably spend maybe 2/3 of the time on my bike and about a third running would be the
Okay.
ratio.
Yeah.
But one of the things I love about mountain biking too is like there's it's such high consequence if you don't focus that I don't think I think I just went for an hour and a half and did 2 hours, and I don't think I had a thought the whole time because I kind of like trails that don't allow me to get away with thinking.
That's why I don't ride a mountain bike.
That's funny. Yeah,
Oh my gosh, that is so true. And I don't know, I was such a cyclist because I rode to work every day. I rode every
yeah,
weekend.
yeah,
I was all
yeah.
on the bike,
Hmm.
and you can get so caught up in just being in that dead zone of nothing. It's like, oh my gosh, I really have to pay attention. There's cars out here.
Yeah, yeah.
But if
It's
you do, if
funny.
you are, you're nothing but in the present moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know you said you live part-time in Flagstaff, and I was in Sedona. I'm like, the trails are amazing, but
Yeah.
the energy is so big. It's funny. I had I mean, it was about 4 years ago, but I was like, I can't wait to go ride. And I was just feeling so free. And I'm like, I kind of forgot that I was on a mountain bike, I think. And I like just didn't slow down for like this drop off. And I'm like, I'm just flying
Oh
until
my
I was
gosh.
upside down. And I'm like, what am
Oh
I?
my
And
gosh.
I had to like climb down an embankment to find my bike. And I'm like, maybe Sedona is not the best place for me to mountain bike. I think I'll go for a run instead. I almost lost my bike. It was,
Did you get injured or you were just scraped up
not
or?
bad, not
Okay,
bad.
good.
It was more kind of a wake up call of like,
Yeah, really.
like I'm glad you're having a great time, but there's like rules of physics here that you need to you need to comply with.
Yeah, you cannot ignore the physics. The physics are true.
No,
You
no,
can bring in the spirituality of it though,
yeah.
but
So,
I
I
do
love
that. I
trail
figured
running in
I'd do
Sedona.
that running. I trip so much because I'm
Mm,
not paying attention, and I
yeah,
always now it's like if my toe clips, it's like, okay, that's a wake up call, Karen. Pay
yeah,
attention, pick
yeah,
your feet up,
yeah.
but yeah.
I know every face plant I've had running has had a very distinct thought that happened as I did it.
Oh shoot.
And I'm like, it was so clear what I was thinking the moment that when your foot hits a rock and it doesn't go forward and there's nothing else to do except for land on your face. Your pants.
Yeah, well, no, I have broken two bones running, but nothing on the
Mhm.
bike, thank goodness.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
hope not to. But even
sure,
now today, my knees are just like ridiculous because they've been scratched and bumped and torn up
sure.
so much that the scars are. But yeah, and let's stay upright and stay in our energy.
Yeah, yeah. It is amazing what a big part of it is funny. Like I said, I've only raced a little bit because I think that congestion of being with a bunch of people,
Yeah.
it felt less interesting to me unless it gets spread out. But I had done a marathon, and it was funny. It was actually in Burlington, Vermont, along the lake. There, it was beautiful. But it was the first marathon and actually the only one I've done. But I was training for it, and I was up to I think I was about a month out, and I was starting to hit some 14-mile runs, some longer runs as I was pacing it towards it. And I ended up having I was 30 years old and I never had my wisdom teeth out. And so they were getting kind of sideways. And so they said, well, we need to pull them. And I thought I'll be out for a couple of days. And it knocked me out for 3 weeks.
Oh my gosh.
And so I'm like, I gotta run a marathon in 10 days. I've barely moved for 3 weeks. And so I did a couple of training runs and I'm like this will be an interesting, exercise of the mental aspect of it. And so
Right.
I just went and did it. And I remember at mile 19, I was like, I was really feeling it. And then all of a
Right.
sudden I'm like, oh shit, I'm walking. When did I start walking? I'm not running. I'm like, there's a ways to go. This isn't gonna work. And so I'm like, and then I was like just kind of running my energy, getting more and more clear. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I'm running again. Oh, good, I'm running. And it just kicked back in. But it was such an interesting thing to do something I wasn't prepared for. Like
Yeah.
I was so on pace. I was on it. I was like, I had my routine down and my regiment, and then the wisdom teeth knocked it sideways. But it was almost more interesting to me to do it in that way because it was, it required something of me that running a marathon wouldn't have. It would have been more about time and how fast my pace was.
Right.
Versus like, what is it like? Am I gonna am I gonna do this? And so yeah, it was really cool.
Amazing what our body can do, right?
Yeah, yeah. When our mind doesn't stop it, or when
I
our mind
know.
puts it forward and frees it up.
I kind of came out of the awareness quite a few years back because I decided I'm going to tackle back-to-back hundreds.
Wow.
And I was more in the curiosity of the body and how fast it wants to recover.
Yeah, and back to back, you
So,
mean like one day, like 2 days in a row, or
back-to-back weekends.
weekends? Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I knew how to I formulated my recovery plan for the whole week.
Yeah,
And the first time I tried it, when I started running the second hundred, it was like, oh wow, I just felt so good.
that's
And so
amazing.
I
Yeah.
did it right, but it brought the awareness on, as much as we do to our bodies,
Mm-hmm.
but we need to be in the energy of our bodies and honor that because our bodies
Hmm.
want to survive.
Yeah, yeah.
And I've watched individuals of my family
Hmm.
who have abused their bodies with alcohol and drugs,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
how the body fights to survive.
Yeah, it wants to recover.
It wants to recover, it wants to perform, it wants to be healthy.
Yeah, yeah.
But when we can get the mental aspect out of it
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
bring
We're
in that
cooperating. Yeah.
healing energy,
Yeah.
it also entails of what we put in our body, the
Yeah,
foods we
absolutely.
eat,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
liquids we drink, and
yeah.
everything. It's powerful on what the body will do.
Yeah. It was interesting. I uh I went vegetarian and then I went vegan, and I was vegan for like 8 years.
Hmm.
And my recovery while I was vegan was absolute, like it just blew my mind how fast I could recover. And then recently in the last year, I started introducing some meats back in. Like my body was really craving that. And again, just listen to my body rather than it being an
Right.
idea of what's right or what's wrong. And I feel so much stronger,
Yeah.
having the meat protein, but my recovery with the animal fats in my system is slower. It was really fascinating to me not having the animal fat in my blood. And that, I mean, that's my take on what it was, but my recovery was like I just felt like I get up the next day and it was like I hadn't done anything the day before. And now I feel it more, um, but I feel stronger. And so it's kind of an interesting piece that, just for me personally. I don't know if you've had any experience, you're talking diet. Have you had any experience with what it's like to not have animal proteins in your body?
Not not truly. I kind of do a half and half, kind of
Mm-hmm.
a vegetarian and animal protein.
Okay.
I do mostly like light fit chicken,
Okay.
not a
Yeah.
lot of beef. If I
Interesting. Yeah.
do like a steak or something, it's going to be once a month or something because it's
Right.
harder
Right.
to digest.
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely.
It takes time in our body to digest it.
Mm-hmm.
I've never gone vegan,
Mm-hmm.
but I find, but I eat pretty darn healthy. I eat organic.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm drinking an organic drink mix, protein drink mix that I have. So I have
Nice.
enough
Nice.
protein in my body. And there's the science study behind that. Everybody's going down the fat and going down the carbohydrate and going
Right.
this other
Right.
direction. And I'm like, well, maybe my body doesn't need that. So
Yeah.
it's all
I
how
always feel like our body knows best what
the
we need.
body knows. And so
Yeah.
I discovered that, years ago, a few years back of shingles
Mm-hmm.
and how that happened. And
Mm-hmm.
then that's when I discovered the liver and what it does for our body. So I'm not an
Yeah.
inside person because I'm not a doctor, and that's why I didn't go down that world. But it's
Right.
important. It's
Yeah.
important to know but I mean, it's the in energy inside of our own organs and our own
Mm-hmm.
heart,
Mm-hmm.
and that energy has to be on the healing side. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mix up, like I said, I
Yeah.
mix up between some meat and vegetables. So I eat a lot of vegetables through the day, but then at night
Mm-hmm.
I do have my protein meat.
Yeah. Yeah. I was wondering, 'cause I realized about a year into being vegan, I was like, man, like I'm not, even as I was trying to be a good vegan, not just not eating meat, but trying to balance it out with everything that I thought I needed. I was having to take a lot more supplements, and
Yeah,
I still wasn't getting the trace elements that I needed,
right.
that I was getting from meat. And it made me wonder, like, I wonder if in people's training regimens because of that incredible recovery. If they had like a month of being vegan prior to a big event like that, what that would be like. And I mean, it's just speculation because
Yeah.
it was amazing for me, the recovery, but I also like it wasn't sustainable for me because like I just, you know, I'm sure it could be fine tuned, but the way that I was doing it, even with taking all the supplements, my body just was starting to crave more animal protein.
Wow, interesting, fascinating.
Yeah, yeah.
David, I would love to have you share with my guests
Mm,
something that you can leave them with of um like a personal advice
mm,
or
mhm.
something to inspire them.
Yeah, yeah. You know, I think that that our consciousness, the higher conscious we are, the more positive our thoughts are.
Yep.
And I also think that it works in the opposite. The more positive our thoughts are, the higher our consciousness goes. And you know, when like I mean I've been guilty of this, going on a run, and like maybe I went for a run because there's something that was upsetting and I'm ruminating and I'm spinning, you know,
Right.
something negative. That whole piece of what does it look like when we go, okay, I'm not denying that I feel that way. I'm not denying these things happen, but where can I look for gratitude? Where can I look for positivity and start to raise my frequency, raise what I'm checking into? Because when we do that, all of a sudden the things that felt so frustrating, the things that felt us dragged us down, that felt stuck or angry, they start to feel a lot less personal. They start to feel a lot less like they're in our way, and they stop directing our behavior so much, because when we can let go of them and get into who am I, what do I want, where do I feel the most alive, and that type of positive thinking, everything changes in our life.
Yep.
And you know, it's so easy to do the other. It's what we're trained to do. And
Right.
so you know, the work that I do is helping people get into a place where that naturally happens, but we can also walk ourselves there by going, I get that I'm angry. I get that that didn't go well. I get that I'm upset with that person. Great. What am I happy about?
Right.
What excites me? And let me start layering that one, and then watch how things shift in my life.
Right.
And utilizing my runs, utilizing my bike rides to stack positivity, instead of churning, you know,
Right.
which is sometimes what happens too. And I think a lot of it gets stored, you know, like gets unlocked from our muscles as we're going, and we can get in the habit of, you know, is there a positive, like uplifting beauty happening inside of us, or are we getting stuck in something?
Hmm.
And I think utilizing that time to unlock ourselves. Yeah.
So one word I take from that, and I've heard it on a couple of prior podcasts, is gratitude.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
gratitude. And so when you can say it, when you can feel
Mm.
it in your body.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And that's a lot. I'm equal with you, and that's a lot of
Mm,
what I teach. So too is
mhm.
changing because you can change the whole neural pathway of your brain
Absolutely.
from
Absolutely.
that, because we're so taught in the fear-based world. Now let's change it to that positive-based world.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. And I think if we can give ourselves permission to not deny the other feelings,
yeah,
we don't have to pretend that that's not okay, but we go,
right,
what is good?
right,
And they can be two different questions. But so often people go, well, but I'm upset about this. Well, right, absolutely. What else is good? Let's actually move to a different location and look
right,
at that.
right.
And that's where the
That's one
gratitude.
thing I agree with that too. And that's, I love that you said that, is that the beauty of us being human
Hmm,
is
hmm.
we have emotions,
Yes, yeah, yeah,
a whole spectrum of them. And so it's
absolutely.
never to deny that, oh, I'm not supposed to be. No,
Yeah,
never deny them. Just
mhm.
accept what they are and see where can I take this now?
Yeah, absolutely.
Where do I really want to
How would
be?
I like to feel instead?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
David, thank you.
Yeah, well, it's really fun to come on and chat with you too, and look at it through that lens of
Yeah.
sports and endurance athletes, and
And
you know,
energy.
and energy. Yeah, it all goes hand in hand, and
Yeah.
so yeah, really appreciate you having me on.
Thank you, David.
Yeah, thank you so much.